Hey Mark, hope you had a good weekend. Nice Easter. Um, I wanted to give you a little bit of a status update on a couple things and just make sure kind of my process and way of working through this set in particular was making sense. Um, but I had a couple housekeeping things that I just wanted to mention before I jump in there. I just wanted to make sure I haven't heard anything about the that first house I was working on. Elish, I think would be how I pronounce it. Um, so just wanted to check and make sure that there hasn't been anything updated that maybe I missed. Um, so there was that, and then I did want to note this. This came up in the drawing set. I have my notes on here, and if you want, I can certainly just send my notes and my process. If you just want to see, I have no problem sharing that with you if you want to see just for how I'm working through this set. Um, but one thing I wanted to note is that there was an issue with and this is such a small thing, but I feel like it might make sense to bring up um, on our area calcs. In the template, it is set up. This was a note that you made in your video. It is set up. I think it's just someone just probably clicked it on accidentally, but it is set up to show calculation totals for area square footage too. Maybe that got accidentally turned on and when doing the last template, but just a FYI that is set to on in the template. Um, and then I kind of just wanted to go over kind of like make sure my process is okay. Um, on this one, I know that we're developing, or right now, like the first step is developing a set of display, like a display package. And, but my process for working through it was, and based on your video that you were showing the previous guy, I think his name was Tim, um, was to get all the red lines and all those changes that the builder wanted um, in the set, and then once everything is drawn out accurately, then to develop the display package that has you know much less annotation and is on a different size sheet and all those things. So but my first step and where I wanted to make contact with you and get some feedback from you was to just get everything up to the like the feedback from the builder's red line. So and there were a couple things that I wanted to mention as I was going through this that I picked up. Um, so one of the things is that it sounded like it now it sounds like in the display package that we don't have like maybe it's not clearly defined exactly what we want to do as far as the stylistic changes. But in the red line set, it sounded like he wanted to like he specifically stated out changing these columns out to 12 by 12 square cedar columns and a couple and a change to the transom and adding a freeze board here. So I just wanted to make sure that we wanted this, our starting set of display of things to have those changes made. Like that's going to be our kind of starting point. Because that's what I did. And yeah. So I guess it would be one would be to just confirm that this is that as far as as the front elevation goes, that this is going to be what we are looking for that we want to do. Um, yeah, and then adding, in here, we're still missing a couple. There's a couple little things, a couple pieces of trim, the freeze, like the freeze board on the main part of the house, and gutters still aren't in there. Which I just wanted to confirm all the other things before I put those in because they tend to be a little more temperamental when I'm moving things around. Um, but the transom and this front elevation were things that I was designing based on notes and not based on a drawing. So I just wanted to make sure that this looks okay for what we're intending. Okay, then I made a note about this. He had mentioned, and this is reversed again, so um, he had mentioned in his set that he wanted to change the dimension of from the interior surface of this wall to this column as 19 feet. And I was just noticing and I think this will probably be fine. It it doesn't maybe it doesn't sit quite perfectly with me, and I'm guessing probably with you too, as far as how we're gonna have beams run. Because I think we're gonna wind up needing a beam that's running here. That's gonna initially, it's dying into this to be in line with this wall here. But in order to do that, either we'd have to make some changes here and widen this front elevation, or widen this entry room, and this dining room's going to push in, and we're going to move space from there. And I wasn't sure that that was kind of our intention, so I just pushed in and I aligned it with this wall here for this breakfast bump out, um, which I think is like the smallest change, and you know makes the most sense is to still have this die into this wall, and then if when the beam does wind up coming in, like it'll just die in here. It'll be a funky little detail here on how these walls come together with this beam. um, so I'm just not 100% sure on how we want to handle this, if we want to like really bump out this whole front elevation. I think it's just a foot, but if we want to move the whole thing in and leave some space in the dining room and then change the elevation too. Not a problem to do it. I just didn't know if you know what we wanted to do there. Okay, so there was also a note about this in the second story. It sounded like he wanted to use this front room in here, which would be this space, use it for storage. And maybe it's something I'm just not seeing from the drawings, but I wouldn't know how you'd actually access this if this is all open, which is my understanding of how you know, um, this foyer space would work. So I mean, I could certainly have this closed in, um, and it's displaying a little bit funny, because of where the cut's being made, but this can certainly be closed in. I just wouldn't know how you would access it. So, question there, and I'll send you these notes so it would be easier to maybe it would be easier to go over them, in the kind of format that I'm going over them too, just so you have something written. Um, and then I also wanted to know if in our display pack, sounds like for the display package we would just want to see the front elevation and the two plans. But if we do want to be displaying, the full set of east and west, and plan east and west and plan north elevation on this too. Um, yeah. So, I mean, as of right now, I just have that front elevation and these two plans that are at this kind of the same level of completion as what he was displaying in his set. Um, and then I have a note here that some of the sweeps and the gutters aren't displayed yet, which I just wanted to confirm those things with you before I throw those in there. Column location. Um, and it sounded like he actually doesn't want to display, at least in this display package, he doesn't want to display oops, his, um, his overhead beam locations. Um, so I didn't display them in him here, but I just wanted to confirm that that's what we wanted to do. And then for foundation plans, again, this is kind of skipping steps, but for for foundation plans. I would assume that this is going to be a full height basement. Um, you know, I think you have it as a 9 foot floor to ceiling height is what it's set up as in the template. Maybe it's 8 feet. Um, but for doing foundation plans, I don't know if that, maybe I'm skipping steps here, but um, yeah, that was the other note. So, and I'll send you the list of notes, and there's a bunch of other stuff in here that was seemed pretty cut and dry, so I didn't mention it in this video. But yeah, so those are the changes I have. Those are the questions I have. Um, yeah, I hope this video makes sense. I think this communicating over videos is great. Like, I think it's really helpful. I went back over a couple times to just make sure I had gotten everything, as good as I could, from your notes and from, because there were the two series of notes. But it's really helpful to be able to go back and reference stuff, um, especially if, after you've been working on it a little bit and then going back to it and making sure the notes are perfect. It's really helpful. So, anyway, Mark, yeah, let me know what you think, and I'll have a little bit of time. I might have a little time today and a little time tomorrow, but I'll have time on Wednesday, and then getting started again on Friday. Um, yeah, so I think it should be pretty reasonable if there aren't any major kind of changes, and we can get enough kind of feedback on what we want for those different display kind of themes, to get you know the whole display set back out to the builder by mid weekend, I would say. Okay, thanks, Mark.